With that, we will move on to item 15.
Item 15 is the receive and file that we've been asked to do every month on the Airport Metro Connector. So we have that receive and file before you today, but this time we have actually included a bit of an update on our work that we've done over the last period of time with the airport, and the airport representatives are here, Lisa Tricoletti and Christopher Kuntz, because what we are requesting, it's not really an approval item, but when we brought the alternatives analysis before you, which was some time ago now, it was also a receive and file. That included 7 alternatives of going to the airport. Since then, we've done a lot of work with the airport, and we realized that 3 of them are not really viable based on their parameters that they're setting on us, because those 3 alternatives swooped under the various parts of the central terminal area and the runways. Not only were they very expensive, but they encroached on the airport property in a way that the airport does not want us to encroach. And then in addition, the board, as you all know, added a 4th alternative. So we're now up to 8. We'd like to eliminate 4 and stick with the 4 that we know are potentially viable. So it's a receive and file, but that's the point of this receive and file today. And if you'd like to hear from the airport representatives, they'd be happy to express their concerns with the 4 alternatives that we would like to eliminate.
Just a couple of very quick questions. So first of all, again, I want to keep saying this every time this comes up. I want to thank Metro and LAWA for working together on this. I think it's been a dramatic sea change, and I'm very appreciative. Wanted to just confirm that Metro and LAWA, you're both moving on your parallel CEQA processes. And I wanted to find out if there's any other government agencies or responsible agencies that are participating in the CEQA or NEPA process, and whether or not the public hearings for the Metro process and the public hearings for the LAWA process are on the same track, whether or not they can be held jointly or if they have to be separate.
Currently, we had a meeting last week with Lisa and her staff, trying to figure out the schedule for they want to do, and Lisa can talk a little bit more about it, a planning analysis before they get into the CEQA document. So we want to talk about the schedules, what their schedule is, what the assumptions are, because it's very critical that we have similar assumptions in terms of walk distances. So we're at the very early stages trying to make sure that our schedules, the assumptions, everything is consistent so that when we move forward, the analysis is a correct and viable analysis.
Again, Lisa Tricoletti on behalf of the Los Angeles World Airports. We are working on developing a project description for the APM and the ITF and the alignment out to Century Aviation. And so we're now engaging on the critical detailed analysis to be able to understand not only the alignment, the interface with the terminals, direct roadway connections to the 405 freeway, the policies associated with operating that plan, because our goal is to bring in that plan through the CEQA process.
And when you folks get to the public hearing process, will you have joint public hearings, both agencies, or will they be?
We haven't talked about that yet.
Think about joint, it'll be easier for folks. So just last question is, when ballpark do you think the board will be presented with the options and have to make a choice?
Well, in the summer, I think LAWA is going to have their analysis, planning analysis done where they're going to have the APM, and then we are going to start a little bit.
What is APM?
Automated people mover, I'm sorry.
Just to be clear, the airport will be taking through an environmental clearance process the airport-operated automated people mover system that will connect our terminal facilities to each other and to off-airport facilities. We are going to be going to our Board of Airport Commissioners to vet that preferred plan, and we're going to be doing that in April or May. And so at that point, I think we're going to all the while be coordinating with Metro to make sure all of our analysis is coordinated.
And then we're planning probably around this time next year that we would have a draft document to present to the board for them.
A draft?
A draft environmental document, probably around this.
A draft environmental impact report?
Correct.
By this time next year?
That's what we're thinking. Our goal is to have the ultimate project, because whatever project is built will be a light rail, automated people mover, joint project to get people from the regional system to the airport. It's just a matter of where we do the connection. If it's in the airport, the automated people mover will circulate around. If it's at the ITF, then the light rail would need to come there and then connect to the automated people mover for the final portion of the trip. If it's at Century Aviation, then the automated people mover would come out there. So it's where does the connection happen?
So when does the environmental impact report drafting start?
We're working now to make sure we have the set of assumptions about how they're going to operate their automated people movers, so that when we do the ridership modeling and the connection points, that we have the data that we need in terms of walk distances, level changes, etc.
Do you think
Thank
that's
you,
going to be
start now.
completed?
It's starting now.
The analysis has started, but have you started drafting the environmental impact document?
Not yet, no.
When does that start?
As soon as we get these assumptions nailed down. so
Which
we
will be
can get
when?
Well, on the airport side,
April, May?
in April, May, we will have a project defined. We will then, by 1 year from about this time period, the airport plans to launch with a notice of preparation, an EIR for the APM and the ITF program.
A year from now?
Yes,
So you're going to commence, the notice of preparation is when the EIR drafting process commences.
remember, there's two different EIRs. There's a LAWA EIR,
Yeah.
and there's the Airport Metro Connector EIR.
Right.
The Airport Metro Connector EIR is about where light rail will link up to
Right.
the airport system.
And then there's floating around this idea that someone wants to take the light rail and bring it all the way to the Bradley terminal, which would overlap the people mover.
Well, you know, it would be helpful to the extent we have graphics. We could share, I don't know if you'd like to look at that and, yeah.
I don't, but maybe others do.
We're trying to eliminate those today, because the airport has said to us that that encroaches too far within their secure space.
Yeah, I think that's going to have to be that's going to be a threshold question, whether this agency is going to go back to the way it did business in the 90s, which we have been creeping toward over the last year or two, or whether we're going to be disciplined about the way we do business, so that we can continue to invest in transportation, not just in this corridor, but throughout the county. That's the concern I have, and to undertake an environmental impact report for an option that you're recommending be eliminated, which would be expensive just to do the EIR on that, would be in conflict with the airport. It is inexplicable how that would work, and it's unaffordable. Other than that, it's a great idea. So I'm just flabbergasted that you guys, staff has tried to do what we have for a decade or more now, tried to get you to do, which is narrow it down so that we don't have 50 studies or 50 options on every project around, which we used to do around here, spent tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on studies that never came to anything, and money that could have gone into other, into real product and not more studies. I mean, you want studies, go to SCAG. We've got to be in the product business, and I'm just, so I'm trying to understand, because there are a lot of ideas or agendas floating around here, and some of them are in conflict with what you've just said. So I think there's going to be a threshold question whether we just want to open the bank and head towards the financial precipice. I don't think this agency wants to go back to where it was. I was there. Some of us who are on this board, who are still on this board, were there when the public turned on us in a big way. We've built build back the credibility of the public, and this is the kind of thing that will undermine that. And you want to talk about another sales tax or another extension of a sales tax, this is the kind of thing that just, you don't want to have to do any more polling. I can tell you what the result's going to be. The public is very sensitive, has a very keen nose about the way we do business, and we have fought very hard to be responsible in the way we do business. And that's why they have rewarded us and themselves with the 2008 Measure R, and almost did Measure J. But I think we see that that's starting to recede now, and that's before any of these ideas come forward. So I thought we were on, and I don't mean to monopolize, I'll just finish with this. I thought we were, that we had a kind of a consensus between the MTA, and Art, maybe you can address this, between the MTA and the airport that has not been easy to achieve, that we would have some, in fact, you and I had a conversation in my office about this several months ago, where we were talking about some midpoint there, wherever the midpoint is, it's over here, over there, but it's in that area, aviation, or whatever the street is in Century area, where you'd have that intermodal facility, or some transfer station where you get from our line to the people mover. And where that point is not the important issue now, but that was a consensus that we were building. And I think that's what your recommendation is trying to keep faith with, is that approach to bust that consensus and go to run a subway all the way to the Bradley terminal. I'm not an expert on this idea, but I'm told that there is one stop, and it's at the Bradley terminal. So we're going to run a subway for $2 billion that carries a few thousand people all the way to the Bradley terminal, bypasses Southwest, bypasses Terminal 2, bypasses Terminal 3, and goes all the way to the Bradley terminal. I mean, this, aside from that, it's going nowhere unless you want to bankrupt the agency. And it has implications for other parts of the county and other projects. And inevitably, it puts us in competition with ourselves in Washington. This is the kind of thing we've been trying to avoid. Anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Art.
Chair. Yeah, I think that in our discussions with the airport over the last 6 or 8 months, we've made a great deal of progress. And we've looking at a meeting point either at the ITF or on aviation. We want to study those, find the best option in terms of operating cost, capital cost, passenger convenience. And we ought to do that without regard to who's going to be on the hook to pay for it. We ought to find the best solution and then figure out how we're going to get it done. We've also said as a guiding light kind of, is that whatever we do, we have to have access to more than one terminal. The LAX is a big airport, and if you imagine the airports around the world that you've gone to, the people mover that you see are running very frequently, every 2 minutes or something like that, and they make multiple stops, not just at one or two locations within the airport. So that's...
And if I may, again, Lisa Tripoletti on behalf of LAWA, we have been making tremendous progress. Over the course of 2 years, we have been working very closely with MTA staff to identify those mutually agreeable, viable alternatives. And when the option about tunneling under the South Airfield, that is our critical infrastructure. Anything that causes the closure of the South Airfield is problematic. We met with our commercial development group to understand, our airport development group to understand the conditions of the soil and all the infrastructure and utilities. We have a sewer outfall system to understand the depth of which you'd have to go under, and to the extent that it comes into the CTA, it still must, you said it correctly, you must link up to a people mover circulator system, which is likely to be aerial, so that difference is quite substantial. So there's a lot of complexity. We know FAA has expressed some concerns, although not formally, about that tunnel work. So that was why and how we came to those options that we're at now.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to state something for the record. I want to be very clear. in case there was any misunderstanding. I don't think there's anybody in this room who's advocating the idea of the tunneling under the central terminal area. I want to be very clear, that's not something that I advocate or support. I'm riding my horse. I've picked it, I've declared it, I've been in the parades on it. The mayor and I have nominated on it. I'm in favor of the LAX Connect option, the ITF. Looking forward to seeing the report backs, but that's certainly the one I'm in favor of. I want to be careful. I'm going to be very blunt because sometimes, there's interagency politics in this issue, and I think we've done a very good job of moving beyond it. I want to make sure that LAWA doesn't inadvertently fall into a trap on this issue. I'm afraid by proposing the subway thing, if someone proposes the subway thing, LAWA's put in the position of saying no to it, so someone can say, damn those LAWA folks saying no to stuff. If someone is going to propose those things, please make very clear the challenges the FAA has outlined to those and not LAWA's agency objections, because I think really that's determinative to that. But just to be very clear, I am a not particularly shy advocate for the LAX Connect option, and I agree with Supervisor Yaroslavsky. It's important to funnel our options down and get to clarity.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this? This is a receive and file. Second? Okay, we have a motion to receive and file without objection. We have done that. Okay, thank you all. Thank you for your comments and ongoing. Next item, and it's item 15. Item 16. Item 16 is the motion by